Okay, you're live.
Good evening, Madam Mayor. It is just about 6 o'clock. It is 6 o'clock and we're live. Is the commission muted?
Yes.
This isn't on.
You're on now, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this Tuesday, January 5th, City Commission meeting to order and ask the clerk to call the roll, please.
Mayor Pam Triolo. Commissioner Scott Maxwell.
Here.
Commissioner Carla Bloxson.
Here.
Vice Mayor Andy Amoroso.
Here.
Commissioner Herman Robinson.
Here.
Thank you.
If everyone would please rise for the invocation led by Commissioner Robinson, followed by the pledge.
We meet to serve our community, to use the resources we wisely and well, to use our resources wisely and well to represent all members of our community fairly, to make decisions that promote the common good. We recognize our responsibility to the past and the future, and the rights and needs of both individuals and community. As trusted servants, we seek blessings on our deliberations and on our efforts here today. May we act wisely and well. Amen.
Amen. Vice Mayor Pro Tem.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, additions, deletions, reordering. Madam Clerk.
Madam Mayor, I just have one. Barton Elementary School is going to make their presentation instead of tonight. They're going to meet us on March 16th. Thank you.
Okay, and might I suggest too, resolution of the consent agenda item D be moved to new business item B?
It's item D in consent.
Item D on consent to new business item B.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, I'll entertain a motion to accept the agenda as amended. Second,
Second.
all those in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. All right, we're going to start with presentations. And our first up, a presentation by Erica Whitfield regarding education.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you.
10.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. Let me start by just saying a really quick welcome to Commissioner Bloxson. It's so nice to see you on the dais, even virtually.
Thank you.
So welcome. I know you've long served the community, so it's nice to see you up there. And I want to say quickly, I don't know if Dr. Deborah Robinson is able to join us this evening, but I did share with her the link. So if she is online, I want to make sure to give her a moment to speak as well, because the city of Lake Worth is represented by 2 school board members and she's one of them. So if she's here, I just want to make sure we know. All right, so I'm going to talk to you really briefly about what's going on in the schools. I really appreciate the opportunity to do this every year. I think it is a really great chance for me to tell you a little bit about the schools, but also for you to feel connected and ask questions. So stop me at any time if you have any questions. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about our experience with distance learning versus brick and mortar, some of the things that are going on with our diagnostics, so just our testing and kind of how the kids are doing, and then digital classrooms, technology, and I have put a bit in there about hunger because hunger is such a big, important issue right now for our community, and then some action steps. So I'm going to go through it really quickly. I have a lot of data, so just stop me at any time if there's a question. So one of the biggest questions that we've had lately is how many kids are actually in school and how many are participating virtually. It's a really high number when you get to the high school level. So our highest number right now, 76% of our high school students are participating virtually. There's 2,400 kids at Lake Worth High. So we're talking a very large number that are participating virtually. Lake Worth Middle, also really high. They have 1,100 kids, 63% participating virtually. And then our elementary schools are right around the 40% range. More kids come in elementary school than they do in high school. And actually talked to Principal Villani at Highland this afternoon, and she was very happy to report that she's almost, I think she's 598 kids that are showing up as of today. So it's a really good thing. When a kid is struggling, we really need them to be in person, and we do our very best to keep them safe in that process. So as far as the digital classrooms and technology, I want to let you all know that every student who has asked for or needs or wants a computer has one, even kids who don't necessarily need one to work at home. We actually have 150% of our students have access to a computer. So that means that we have 50% more than we actually need at Lake Worth High School, 118% availability of computers for Lake Worth Middle, 124% for Barton Elementary. Highland is 117, 119 at North Grade, and 105 at South Grade. So you can see we actually have more computers, more devices available for students than they even need, which is really good, because I talked to Miss Villani today. She told me she had a student come in, he's on his 4th computer. He's broken 3 of them. And so he's on his 4th. So she said, you know, try to take better care of it. But it's a reality that we have to replace them. We have to have classroom sets for when they're there, if they maybe forget one. So the reality of making sure a student is ready and prepared, especially when a teacher is doing teaching in person and the virtual students at the same time, it's a really big deal. The other thing we have that the city of Lake Worth has been so helpful with is access for Comcast subscriptions, T-Mobile hotspots, and we're about to do our digital inclusion. So that's a huge thing where we are working with the city to create those polls. It's actually in 3 weeks that they should start installing the first radios. So it's a huge thing for the city. I think we're second right after the Glades. The Glades is almost done with their installation. So to have Lake Worth kind of at the top of that, it's just so big for our families, and it just means so much. So we actually have gotten out T-Mobile hotspots and Comcast subscriptions to those kids, but soon they'll just be able to log on because of all the work that you guys have done, and the commitment from the city has just been amazing. Okay, so let's talk diagnostics. So testing didn't count last year, but we still do our own internal testing. So when I say it doesn't count, that means that the state isn't holding us, accountable for any tough grades that we got or holding kids back in school. None of that's happening right now, but it probably will happen this year. It's possible that the state might change their mind at the last minute, but we have to go forward pretending that it's going to happen and prepare the students and then just hope. So, but the purpose of our diagnostics is really so we can look at the kids, see where they are, and then plan for their education for the rest of the year. So we did a test last fall, and then we did a test this past fall. So we have the last year, which is the 1920 school year. In that fall, we call it FY20. And then this year, FY21, so 2021 school year, we're comparing those two sets of data. And basically what I want to share with you, though I have all the data if you really want to know it, but what I want to share with you is how difficult it is for the kids who are distance, who are trying to learn on a computer, to make gains. So we know that the kids that were in person had gotten a certain number. There have been gains across the board in all the schools in Lake Worth, in the city of Lake Worth, in English, but in math, almost every school has had dips for their students. So that means that kids are actually lower now than they were a year ago in math. In English, they're going up. For the kids in person, it's going up a lot. For the kids that are virtual, it's like barely going up. So it is, the difficulty of teaching virtually is so real, and our teachers are killing themselves and doing a great job. But even with all that happening, I want you all to know how difficult it is really to do that. And so one example I'm going to give you is Barton Elementary. In grade 4, their English language scores, the difference between last year and this year for the distance learning kids, it only went up 1%. They've only made 1% of gains. And then the on-campus kids have gone up 9%. So that's the same kids, same test, everything, but the difference is so stark. Now for math, we have only seen increases in grade level 5 at some of our schools, and Barton Elementary is the only one that made any gains in math for their students, but everybody else is just going down, and it's very, very difficult for them to teach in that time. The other thing we looked at that just was recently in the paper, so I wanted to mention it to you guys, is how many Fs we get. Lake Worth really struggles with Fs in general. So if you look at the students from last year, whole district had about, at this time, Students with one or more Fs, so had an F on their report card, was about 15% of the district at this time last year. This time, in the whole district, it's 28%. So 15% was the whole district, 28% is this time this year. If you look at Lake Worth numbers, Lake Worth Middle and Lake Worth High, students with one F last year, 30%. This year, they're in the mid 50s to high 50s of number of kids. So half the kids at Lake Worth High and Middle have at least one F on their report card right now, which is how we can tell how we're doing as a system. So the impact of COVID has been the same across the district, but Lake Worth was already behind, and so now they're even more behind. Does that make sense? It's really a tough thing. So there's some things that the state has asked us to do. What they're doing is they wanted us to come up with a COVID plan and like, how are we going to deal with the impact of COVID? So what we've done is we've put together assurances that we had to send to the state. And the one that really impacts us here is when a student is not doing well in school, we have to reach out to their parents, let them know they're not doing that well in school, specifically the distance learning kids, and say, we recommend that you come back into the building. And obviously we have spacing set up, everyone wears masks, there's hand sanitizer everywhere. I visited pretty much every school in my district this year, and they really are doing good, and we're not seeing secondary transmission in our schools. Kids come in with COVID, but they send them immediately away and they go on distance then. So we're able to really keep that to a minimum, but we have to tell the parents your child is not succeeding in distance right now. So we need them to come back in the building. And if they choose not to do it, they have to actually sign a piece of paper saying that we understand the risks of not bringing our children back into the building, because it is so much more difficult for them. And so we are asking for that to happen. But the state says that we must not unreasonably restrict the decision of a parent. So that's not what we're doing. We're just informing. So there's a lot of communications going out on that. Also, right now until January 11th, families have the option to say whether or not they want to come back or not. Obviously, we let anybody in who needs to come back, but it's just really for us to help us with planning. If we know you're coming back for the year, we can plan better, make sure we have the seating and the spacing and all that. So it's just asking for that communication back from the parents so that we make sure. So how many kids in Lake Worth are not making adequate progress? It's tough. So the kids that are not doing well enough, that are going to get that phone call, that are going to make sure that somebody asks, the numbers are pretty high. So Barton Elementary right now, it's 57% of the kids not making adequate progress. One of the other things we look for is attendance. I asked all the principals in Lake Worth to kind of give me a little quote of like a challenge or a success that I could share with you. And I have to tell you, all 4 of your elementary principals came back with the exact same quote. They all said their successes of the year have been handing out computers, that we've been able to do that. And it's been so awesome. The struggle is that a lot of kids are not signing on if they are on distance. So it's possible to make gains. It's possible for us to teach kids in distance, but they have to be on every day. They have to be on for 6 to 8 hours a day, and they have to sit there through their whole classes and do their work. And if a child is home and doesn't have adult supervision, if they don't have, the stamina to stay on for that long, sometimes kids are falling asleep, especially the high school kids on the camera. That can be really a challenge. So we have attendance that we're looking at. So if a child hasn't been in school for 3 or more weeks, in any 3-week period, 3 days or more, they were absent. That's a problem. Or if they have 2 or more core class grades that are F, so that's like English and math and science, the core classes. If you're failing 2 of those, then we ask you to come back. So the number of kids right now, Barton Elementary, 57%, Highland Elementary, 54%, North Grade, 32%, South Grade, 36%, Lake Worth High is 27%, and Lake Worth Middle, 33%. The other thing I just heard about about Lake Worth Middle and high school is a lot of these students are using this opportunity to work because their families are really struggling, maybe not making the income that they used to. So the opportunity to be distanced sometimes means that they just don't they're just not participating in school. And it's been a real challenge for us as a school district to get kids. And so I want to share with the commission, because I want you all to be able to speak to your communities and really encourage them to participate in school, because we know the impact of COVID is going to be felt for years among these children, and it's a real challenge. Last thing I want to mention is about hunger. I just want to mention to you that I'm also on the United Way's Hunger Relief Task Force. I've been the childhood chair for I think 5 years now. So we've been doing this for a long time. The needs for hunger in this community are terrible. I know you guys have done such good work having food giveaways sponsored by the city and working with the Feeding South Florida, and I'm so glad you do that. In addition to the work that you're doing, obviously the schools have been a huge place for people to get food. We actually have some new numbers that I just got today of how much we're feeding, and I wanted to mention that and really to talk about some of the opportunities that we still have. But 24.6 million people were fed, students were fed before COVID happened in the schools in that first time beginning of school year until March 16th when we started our distance time. Since then, we have fed 12 million meals since March, and 7 million was this year. One of the big struggles that we have is that, if kids aren't in school, we can't feed them. And that's a real struggle for us, is that, we're used to our school food service always has a ready population. So we have to create an opportunity to still give them their food and make sure that they're getting fed, because we know the hunger needs are greater than ever. So we have 97 grab and go spots throughout the county. Tuesdays and Thursdays, we give out food. Before the holidays, it was an insane amount of food that was given out, because we were giving out 16 meals in a package. And just at Lake Worth High alone, 6,400 meals were given out on the day before we went away for the holidays, just at Lake Worth High. And I mean, the scope of trying to feed so many people is so big. But I have to say, we're still not feeding as many as we feed when kids are really in the building. Usually we feed these kids so much, and lately we just haven't been able to. And so that's been just a huge struggle. Another thing I want to mention is a backpack program. North grade, South grade, and Barton all have backpacks, which means that they put food in a backpack and send it home with the kids on Friday, and they feed them over the weekend. It's awesome. You have one school that doesn't have it. It's Highland Elementary. So when I talk about action steps, I think I would really like to see Highland get a backpack to send home. They're pretty cheap. We use community partners to do it. United Way helps to make that happen. The ones in Lake Worth right now, First Presbyterian of Lake Worth actually funds the North grade backpacks. They do about 100 a week packs, and sometimes they even go to teachers, which is just an unbelievable thing. And then Barton does about 42 backpacks a week, and South grade does 58. South grade has actually asked for more, and United Way's found some funding for that, which is really great. But the need is so huge. I feel like you have to understand the concerns for these families and what they need. So I'm hoping I get that across. But I did talk to Highland's principal, and she would love to have a backpack program. So we'll be working through United Way, but if there's any contacts in the community that would like to help fund that, it's really a wonderful thing. And the students are given the food in discreet manner so that none of their friends know that they're getting extra food to take home. The other thing that we just found out today is that USDA has funded the 5th round of food boxes. So a ton more money in food is going to be coming in. More money is going into the SNAP program that just got funded by Congress. So we're pretty excited about that. And the food for the USDA food boxes should be given out by the end of January. Okay, so I did that really fast, but I wanted to just tell you my quick action items that I would love to see this commission help with. The first is, I would love it if every one of you committed to sit on one SAC. There's five of you in 6 schools in the city. I know you guys are engaged with your schools, but I think being a part of the school advisory council, which is like business leaders and community members, and you get to vote on how to spend a very little bit of money that comes in from that and really be engaged with your school. So if you are interested in a school and you would like to sit on a SAC and you need any help coordinating that, I will get you in touch with the principal and get you set up with that. The other thing I wanted to mention is that if you know any students who are trying to get to the testing sites for testing, some of our distance kids need to come back into the building for diagnostics, which is going on this week and next. They have to actually use, they can actually get transportation through the buses, but we have to set that up because if they haven't been coming, then we don't know that they're going to come. And so we have to actually set that up. So if that's a concern for any of your families, let us know. We can talk to the teacher or the principal and make sure that they get a bus to bring those kids for those specific days. And then the last thing I wanted to mention was, I know we did a Lake Worth Education Board. I'd really like to get that going again. And I think it would be really, I mean, with the impact of what COVID's doing to these schools, I think it would be a very valuable thing if you would consider making it a real advisory board with community member input. I do think we are in for a really tough time in education. This is going to be, the impact is going to be long reaching and it's going to hurt our communities. There's kids that are just not learning right now. So to have the community support us and support their schools, I think would be wonderful. And I think we need to have a meeting every month to talk about how it's going and what we're missing and really firm up that connection between the city and the schools. Because I think we see when a city is super engaged with their schools, how awesome it really goes. And I really, the idea actually for you guys to sit on a SAC was one I got from City of Delray. And I just thought, wow, that's such a great thing to really like create those connections and have that engagement. So with that, I just want to say I thank you for letting all of the principals come and speak to you. I'm so excited that they're coming. They're going to be coming for the next few months to see you and give short presentations, hopefully. And if you guys have any questions for them or for me, I'd love to hear them. But again, I just want to thank you for caring about your schools and for letting me come and speak. So I'll take any questions you have.
Vice Mayor?
Hi, Erica. Happy New Year.
Here.
A couple questions. So for clarity, does Community Partner actually buy the backpacks and then we're looking for partners to fill the backpacks?
No, we have probably 5 or 6 organizations. We have Pan Florida Challenge is one. We have the Food Bank. We have Living Hungry. There's lots of organizations in the community that will actually buy the food. They do it in bulk. They will pack it. They've got volunteers to do it. So it's just about the funding. Once it's funded, all the work will be done. And I actually did ask Ms. Villani, I've said, the commitment on the school side is to actually take the food, store the food for a couple of days, because we usually don't pass it out till Friday, but they distribute it usually Wednesday. And we actually have a partnership with Cisco, so they might deliver the food for us. Some schools do that. And then they would just store it and then the teachers pass it out on Friday. So that part would be taken care of inside the school. So it's just about the funding and then working.
So you need funding for the food.
Yeah.
Because what we're doing here in Lake Worth Beach is we already have food.
Oh,
that
good.
We, and we've stored quite often in the city's warehouses food for a period of time to be distributed at a later date.
Okay.
But I also, that's why I wanted clarity, because we also, and I was going to mention in my report, but I'll mention it to you. We quite often at our food distribution on Tuesday, a couple of weeks ago, we had a gentleman come and he was passing out $100 bills and he had over 1,000 envelopes and he asked, can I pass these out in your line? Absolutely. Today, somebody walked up and said, if I come back with gift cards for Winn-Dixie or Publix, can I pass them out? So quite often we get those people just walking up and, so if I know that you need funding for different, if you could give me a list of some of the funding and maybe some of the costs contributed to those lists that, I could physically say, if you're willing to help, we need help in this area.
Yeah, I'll get you guys the numbers. Ms. Villani didn't really want a food pantry, but I know that Dr. Arce liked having a food pantry in South Grade, and that was very well used by the community. So if you have food, that might be a good place. I can talk
Well,
to
and if we can talk these schools into having food pantries, we can get the food pantries filled with non-perishable items. So, you know, they
Yeah,
may
we
not want them, but if they've got a closet somewhere that we can, you know, transform into a food pantry, you know, that would be great. And we'll take care of my group, the group of volunteers that we have, we'll take care of getting that, you know, those filled on a regular basis.
Lake Worth High does have a food pantry that I know they were. It's really like the food comes in and goes out immediately. Like some days it's full, some days it's not. So, but I will reach out and I'll let them know that you guys have food, because I mean it's all about getting it out, and the schools have the people.
Absolutely. So any of that need. The only other thing I was going to ask, and you covered a few of them, you know, your wish list. You know, one of the things on your wish list was internet access for the kids. You know, we did that. Thank you for addressing that. You know, we went above and beyond, you know, even over Florida Power and Light, you know, to make sure that the city of Lake Worth Beach was paying for that and making that happen. Anything else on your wish list? I don't want to put you on point tonight, but let us know in the future your wish list, because I'm sure it's changing daily with everything that's going on with COVID. So let us know exactly what you need, and we'll try to address it from the dais.
Thank you so much. Honestly, you guys don't even understand how proud I am of the work in Lake Worth, that we have this internet program happening in the mobile internet here. It's just really, it's astounding and wonderful. And the fact that Lake Worth got on board so quickly, I really think we need to sing the praises of that as high as we can, because it's going to have a huge impact on our families. Because, well, let me tell you this, one of the struggles that we have with Comcast, as great of the services is for us to give out Comcast subscriptions and ability to have the internet that way, a lot of families don't want to be identified. So they don't want to give anybody their information, their home address, nothing. So it's difficult to give them internet if they don't want anybody to know who they are. And so, you know, as a school system, we educate everybody, we don't care. But some of these kids and these families won't accept a Comcast subscription. So we have to come up with another option. So the fact that Lake Worth is doing that, I mean, it's a huge gift to the community.
Well, we addressed that when it came to us, because it was, you know, news to us, but we addressed that to make sure that, you know, we were doing what we could to make sure that everyone got coverage.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Vice Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. Happy New Year, Erica.
Happy New Year.
Thank you for your presentation. Just to touch a little bit on the backpack program. So you've clarified the financial need, but how about the backpacks themselves? Are there special backpacks that need to be purchased that are sturdy enough for food, or is there anything?
They usually just put it in the kids' backpack that's existing that they already have. They usually put it in like a Ziploc bag and then put it in a backpack. If you were interested in just giving kids backpacks at schools, that they generally do need those things too. There's a lot of need out there for, gosh, so much, but shoes, socks, clothes, underwear is a big one. You know, and then in the high school level, there always is a need for, you know, period supplies, like tampons and pads and things like that. That's a big struggle. And backpacks and school supplies are always a huge deal. But usually the food will be put in a Ziploc bag and then put into the backpack. And so we used to give out backpacks, but they don't as much anymore because they don't want to identify the kids in any way. So if they all have the same backpack, it might be a way to identify them.
I got you. And the other question I have, as you were going through the numbers about distance learning versus on campus, one thing you didn't mention, and I hate to ask, but I got to know how many, because I've heard stories through the media that there's a number of children that aren't participating at all. Do you have any?
Yeah. So you mean the kids that are missing? Because we have some missing kids.
I didn't want to use the word missing, but that's essentially what we're talking about here. How many in Lake Worth Beach are we talking about?
So they have hunted down most of them. Let me tell you some quick stories about that. So I know that the teachers literally take time out of their day every day to go look for these kids. They knock on doors, they go to last known address, they try to find them. The impact is twofold. One, the kids are really struggling. But two, a lot of the funding we get, it's tied to each kid. We get a little over $7,000 per child every year. And so we were down 7,300 kids. I don't know how many were in Lake Worth, but that was the whole district. I think they found 3,000 of them, last I heard. But they are looking constantly. So when we say we can't find them, sometimes they've signed in once and then have never come back. Some of them have left the state. We know that they're out there. Like I said, some are working. That's one of the things I heard from Lake Worth Middle. They're actually working, which is a struggle because we're talking middle school kids that really need to go to school. So it is a not insignificant number. And I actually talked to Highland today, and she was telling me about that as well, that she's not been able to find some of them. So I can get you real numbers on how many we're missing at each school, but it's very real that they are not here and and not signing in virtually. So, and it's a real struggle because we need to educate them, and if we don't get them back, it impacts our ability to keep staff employed. We've been held harmless by the state this year, which is a huge gift. So that means that the number of kids that we anticipated we'd have, we got the funding for. But as of the summer, they've told us that we are not going to be held harmless anymore. So we will feel the impact of every kid that's missing in dollars. And that will equate to bus drivers, custodians, school food service workers, and teachers and administrative staff that we will not be able to keep employed anymore.
Thank you very much. And again, happy New Year. Hug the little one for me.
Commissioner Bloxon?
Erica, first I wanted to say thank you for your kind words. And I just had a comment about looking at the whole district at 15%, 28% for the district as far as the kids getting Fs on their report cards or they're struggling. And for Lake Worth, that number is 30% and 50%. So theoretically, half of our kids are struggling, and I worry that even though we tell the parents that your child is struggling, you need to bring them back to brick and mortar. If the parent decides to keep their kids out, do they understand that their kid may be held back because we won't have any choice? But more importantly, the long-term ramifications of not learning. It's not just the socialization, it's not just the education, it's everything that goes along with that experience. So I don't know that the parents really understand how important it is, that their kids actually show up. Not just distance learning, but show up for brick and mortar. And do we have any data on how much the COVID transmission has been in the schools so that we can reassure them to say it's not as bad as you're hearing?
Well, I want to assure you that COVID transmission has been really, really small. I think right before the holidays, we had our very first secondary transmission. So within the school, but before that we had none. And we're talking in 200,000 kids and however many are actually in the building, which, it can be around 40 to 50% right now in most schools. So, I mean, the precautions that have been taken in our schools are working. I've sent my kid back literally the minute that school opened. I even put her on a bus, which some people thought I was crazy, but I mean, the buses are fairly empty. There's not a lot of people on them. We are so safe. Everyone wears masks constantly. If you don't wear a mask, you can't come to school. So, I mean, it is very serious in the buildings. And also we have no visitors. There's just none, 0 visitors. I don't even remotely try to go to a school unless I have an appointment. And even then I'm very careful about not interacting with anybody while I'm there. I just walk and visit from a distance. So we are doing our very best for that. But let me tell you that the principals, the guidance counselors, the teachers are reaching out to these parents. And some of them just say, I have to work and my kid can't go back, or my kid doesn't want to get up. A lot of kids don't want to get out of bed. You get to, even if you are online. So, it's about trying to work with the families as much as we can, but I really do struggle with the learning losses. We know the losses are going to be enormous, and we're already seeing it just from the number of Fs that I'm telling you about. Half of our kids in Lake Worth have gotten an F on their report card this year in the last semester. That is insane. Half of our kids have at least one F. I actually have the numbers for how many have more than one F. And some kids they don't even participate enough to get even close to a grade. So That is a big struggle. We are trying to convey to the parents how important it is to be engaged. But I feel like this is one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you all is I want to spread that message that you have to send your children to school, or if they're going to be distance, you need to ensure that somebody's there. One of the other really big struggles I've heard about is our disabled kids who have high risk of, contracting a virus or being sick if they get it. So their parents don't want to send them. And those kids particularly struggle because it's hard to do distance learning when you have a disability. It's very difficult for us to provide that. So that's one of the other assurances we had to make to the state was how we were going to provide those supports for our kids that were, have a disability. But it is just very difficult if they're not in person to do it. And so we were hopeful that it would work great. And I would say for some kids are really succeeding in it, but by and large, you have to have a lot of support from your family to make distance learning work, and a dedicated kid.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Robinson?
Yeah, Erica, thank you for educating us as to how difficult this year has been. It's really your dedication and all of the school board and staff and teachers have demonstrated how difficult it is for education. So thank you. I can't thank you enough. The education board that Lake Worth would have, what are your thoughts on getting it up and running by February? And how many do you anticipate? And would it have to be parents, or would it be professional educators, or?
I know I anticipate community members being a part of who care about education and would like to be a part of it. I've seen it work in many other communities. It's really, really successful in, I can think of like 10 communities off the top of my head that are doing it really well throughout the county. And I talked to Dr. Fenoy today. He said he would volunteer to be our very first guest speaker to get a draw. So if you want to have the superintendent at the first one, we can do that. I think, it would be a great opportunity for, developing that partnership. We could just do a short 1 hour meeting once a month, but I think that continued discussion between the community and education is needed because I think there's some valuable resources that we're not tapping into in the community that we need. It's something that I feel really passionate about, and I would like to see it happen. And yeah, as soon as we can, I'll commit to be there every month. And, I'm sure Dr. Robinson would love to participate as well from the community. We can have principals come, but I think it should be an official board with community input. From people similar to the way the CRA works.
I would hope that we could put out an announcement for volunteers and limit it to no more than, 10 or 5?
Maybe, 10 might be nice. I'm thinking the boards throughout the community that I've seen are a little bit bigger. People that are engaged, maybe each of you want to appoint 2 people or get people who are interested in the community. I would leave it to your staff to tell me what would work best for the city too. But we have some great models that we could use throughout the county. And I really think it could be a wonderful thing to get people engaged in education to the city level.
So if we could challenge the commission to come back next meeting with 2 names, we could have a up and running education board by February.
Well, let me know if you guys all think it's a good idea too. I obviously respect your decisions, but I think we're at a point where education has to be a priority for all of us. I think it's going to be something that the entire country is going to be tackling. So
we can ask for a consensus tonight.
Well, no pressure, but if you're interested, it would be wonderful.
Yeah, no, I wish I'd like to talk to you about this too. In reference to the Education Council, Sylvina has been in touch with several people, but they've been unable to meet even virtually, we've reached out to several principals, teachers, and they've been quite busy,
Oh, yeah.
not able to do things. I'm totally in support of we've actually discussed it at the Mayor's Education Council of having an advisory board. It was the flavor of the commission at that time for saying that enough with advisory boards, we have too many with no missions. That was what was going on at that time. I'm glad to hear that people are actually interested in it this time. So that's positive, especially with what's going on with COVID and the challenges that our kids are facing right now. So I'm very pleased about that. I don't know if you want to get together some of the information from some of the other, I know that we've talked with Boynton, we've talked with Delray, we've talked with West Palm in our previous meetings in reference to those advisory boards. Royal Palm Beach gave their opinion on why it worked and why it didn't work. We've done a little research on that so we don't have to reinvent the wheel. Maybe we can reintroduce some of this information and put, the one thing is that wasn't just a citizen board, it was also professionals in the field too. So, we'd have to come up with just like planning and zoning or whatever else, we'd have to come up with the requirements of whatever some of the positions might be. Mike, you're raising your hand?
No, I just want to remind y'all that, and I think some of the more successful ones have been community generated by folks. I know when my daughter was young, we did one in West Palm to say they were going to tear down the school. And it was based on the one that was done in Delray, which was a citizen group that really came together and made the community. It wasn't necessarily the city stepping in, because once you make it an ordinance, you then bring in sunshine law and all the confusion of making it a city advisory board. It gets a little more complicated. It's a great idea to do and get a community that's really interested. So maybe there's some folks in the community that might be willing we would host it and facilitate it, but that's an option as well. I don't want to get into details too much, and I appreciate the enthusiasm of Ms. Whitfield, but some of the things we've researched in the past, it's a little more complicated.
Just because of the COVID situation, personally, I would think that I would want school people involved in it as well as citizens. You know what I mean?
We can definitely get the principals and the different administrators to come and participate and talk about needs in the community and maybe some best practices from what we've seen in other places. I think the most important thing is that we just regularly meet, whatever it is. I'm sort of sounding the alarm tonight, letting you know that this isn't going to be pretty, and so. I want to do everything I possibly can to help, our kids, because it's going to be tough. And so anything we can do to get support from the community, I think we need to.
Vice Mayor?
My 2 cents on is it something that, Erica, you're willing to, pull together? I think, I speak on my behalf, but I think I'm hearing, you have the city's support, but once we create that board, like the city manager says, sunshine, if you don't have a quorum, you can't make decisions. I think it might be easier and better if you put that group together. Maybe you want us to, recommend some people, each one of us recommend 2 people, because I'm thinking more of our retired school teachers that may reside in Lake Worth Beach, definitely, parents. But I think especially now with what's going on with COVID, a lot of people aren't attending meetings. If you set it up more of a community group that is separate from this dais, I think that it could be more successful and you would be able to achieve a lot more because sunshine and, attendance and other things apply when we create a board. So, I support it.
We can definitely, I can definitely invite people and, we can work with staff to have a meeting spot in the city, or I really just want to do it virtually. I think virtual is fine and I can definitely do that. But I would like to have, your input and to be a part of it, because I really do think that the idea of having, city engagement is really important. And I hope you all will consider being on a SAC, because I think they're meeting virtually too. And I really thought that was a great opportunity to, keep you engaged. If you just pick a school that you want to care about and be a part of, that's a great way for you to just be once a month reminded of.
And that's what I wanted to mention too. I'm happy to sit on, and, I care about all the schools. So, I want to sit on all, but, let's figure out what we can do. Thank you.
Commissioner Robinson?
I'd like to challenge the NAPC to Neighborhood President's Council to come up with volunteers. And I appreciate not establishing a sunshine board. How much I like the sunshine. But the NAPC could reach out to the community in a good way that wouldn't be as official.
Vice Mayor?
You're the liaison. Are you willing to take it back to the NAPC?
I'm going to mention it Saturday. Saturday is going to be their challenge. So
You guys, do you meet virtually? I could always join too, or I could
we
come.
do.
I mean, I'm happy to be there. I will help you with the challenge. To talk about.
And then a good challenge date.
Yeah, I'd be happy to come to your next meeting. I used to belong to the NAPC a long time ago.
Saturday morning at 9:00.
It's the first Saturday of the month.
Okay, so
This Saturday.
let me know what the details are and I will be there.
I just worry the last board that we had that was a committee on its own right outside of the board was the Centennial Committee. I'm still waiting for a clock tower at the beach. How about you?
What happened to the clock tower at the beach?
I have no idea.
Or the change.
People don't.
That was the last one we had with no internet. Okay, any other questions? All right, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you guys. Happy New Year. I appreciate
Happy New
it.
Year to
Have a
you.
great day.
All right, we removed the Barton Elementary School Commission Liaison reports and comments. I'm gonna start with our newest, or do you want to hear how it goes first? And let everyone.
Let her.
Okay, Vice Mayor Pro Tem, you start. Show her how it's done.
I don't want to go first.
Show her how it's done. I'm so glad you're
A
here.
couple things. First of all, again, happy New Year to everybody. I hope.
It's hard to hear you, but I know that you're doing the right
Happy
thing. but-
New Year to everybody out there that's listening and who are not listening. I hope everybody had best holiday possible under the challenging circumstances this year. We had some nice weather to go along with that. So got 2021s here, and I think we're all happy to move forward and see if we get it a little better this year than we had last year. A couple comments. And actually, these are directed to the city manager, and these have, are really kind of directly related to some of the comments that we heard related to education, and that is the COVID situation. My concern is now we're hearing more and more stories about this second strain that's popping up. And I'm wondering from the city's perspective, I know you guys have regular meetings or conference calls, if you will, with the county and whatnot. What, if anything, is being done to address that issue? And can we expect, or should we expect to, I'm trying to figure out how to phrase this, to want to heighten, what I'm trying to say is, it seems like there was this glimmer of hope that the vaccine was coming, and now there's this second strain. Are we going to find ourselves back where we were a little bit ago? I just want to make sure that we're not all have this false sense of security, and the city doesn't have this false sense of security, and that, we're doing everything we can to communicate with the public as to what's going on with this second strain, the vaccinations, all that goes with that. And I think that this is a very critical time to make sure that we get our information straight and get it disseminated to each and every member of the community. So do you have any comments on that second strain and the vaccine and where we are with all that?
You want to do that at the end towards the reports? Or
Madam Mayor,
did you have an
I can
update?
do it under my comments at the end, if that's okay.
Okay.
The other comment that I want to make is for those of us in the south end of the city, we experienced, I believe it's the day after Christmas, a power outage. And this took out the power from 12th Avenue South all the way to the Lantana border. Some knucklehead thought that they knew how to chop down trees. And as best we can tell from the reports I'm getting back from the electric utility department and the city manager, is that perhaps an illegal contractor was brought in to do some arborist work, if you will. The tree that they were trying to bring down actually toppled over
under the power lines onto the person's house, the owner's house, which caused a massive, I guess, the lines to explode very close to the substation. And a third of the city was out of power for 3 or 4 hours. I think we need to have a conversation very soon about how we're dealing with contractors, because I'm speaking to the city manager, we don't have any ordinances that require permits or licensing or recognition, some sort of certification for people to cut down trees and landscape people. And I think maybe it's time we start looking into this, because, the owner of that property isn't talking, the neighbors aren't talking. And I don't think we've got a good lead right now on who did this, but there was a significant amount of damage to our system and economic impact. But more importantly, it was just a hell of an inconvenience for our residents in the south end of the city, especially the day after Christmas. Okay, this stuff has got to stop. So as we get into the new year, 2021, I'm going to be a little bit more assertive when it comes to dealing with these heads. And a community should not have to operate like this. We need code enforcement. They're out there on the weekends now. I don't know why we didn't catch these folks. But anyway, those are my comments. It's a little frustrating, but just to make everybody aware of what happened. And city manager, I would like to, if you want to have a conversation with the commission, or if you think staff can run with it, but we need to have some sort of formal process, if you will, for anybody that's going to cut down trees or do landscaping in this city. So we know that they're not going to be cutting into power lines or digging where they shouldn't be digging, or, doing other things, they're going to cause quality of life issues for the community. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Ready? Commissioner Bloxham. I like saying that.
First of all, I'd like to thank the commissioner, my fellow commissioners, for appointing me to the commission and this opportunity. I've been volunteering in Lake Worth for a long time, and this position has allowed me to just work that much harder and do it on a broader basis. But for one of the things that's near and dear to me is the Martin Luther King celebration that's coming up. And we're going to have a brunch from 11 to 12. We're going to still do the walk. We're going to social distance. One of the things we're not going to do is each year I plan the dinner and we feed over 250 people. And it's a community potluck, and you see people that you haven't seen for a whole year. And so I'm sorry that we're not going to do that. We're looking forward to starting it back next year. For the holiday, we started feeding families individually, and I know that a couple of the other commissioners do it as well. When you find a family that's in need, you just step up and do what you can do, and that's what we've been doing for the holiday. One of the things that's also dear to my heart is the wall that is on the south end of the city. It was a symbol of segregation, and we're now changing it to be a symbol of hope. And we're almost ready to start painting. The artists are going to kick off their painting on Martin Luther King weekend, that Saturday. Before then, we're going to let some kids come in and paint. And the city has just been phenomenal as far as providing their support. There hasn't been anything that we've asked Mike or any of the city commissioners to do, and you guys haven't said no. You've just said, okay, how can we help? What more can we do? And I think that goes a long way in reassuring the citizens in that district that everybody is pulling for this project. And we have stakeholders that don't live in that district. And we have artists, phenomenal artists who have volunteered. So I think everyone will really be pleased with the project. So I'm really looking forward to getting that more off the ground. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Vice Mayor?
Yes, again, everyone at home, a very happy new year. I want to welcome our newest commissioner to the dais, Commissioner Bloxton. Feeding South Florida and the CRA and the city of Lake Worth Beach is continuing doing our drive-through with Feeding South Florida every Tuesday. There's still a lot of need. Channel 12 was there today and Palm Beach Post and said, well, how long is this going to go? It's going to go as long as there's a need. And as long as we have funding, Erica mentioned a little bit, there was additional funding in the package that came out of Washington for food. So we'll continue to work on that. I'm still working with Buchan Provisions and Grotto Restaurant out of West Palm Beach I'm still doing home delivery for anyone out there that needs home delivery. Unfortunately, our friend Sam Davis is in the hospital today, and called me and said, please don't bring me any food because I am in the hospital. So best wishes to him. And then on the COVID standpoint, I've been working with the towers and other elders in the community looking for the actual vaccine. We work under Palm Beach County. Palm Beach County has a hotline that you can call in, but they tell you that they limit to 150 calls a day. Please be patient when you call to make an appointment, and you will be making an appointment for a future date. I've been working with Representative Silvers and other electeds to try to prioritize. Unfortunately, they can't do for Lake Worth what they can't do for everyone else. So, I urge the elders to be patient. We know that there's a need there and we're working on it. And like Commissioner Maxwell said, what does the second round look like? And I know Mike and his staff is on the calls every week, but we are pushing from multiple levels and, trying to get ahead of it. It changes daily. And anything else that we can do to, get food out. I look forward to working with Erica and, hopefully setting up some food banks. So it's a little bit easier for the kids, especially on the weekends. Thank you.
Commissioner Robinson?
Yeah, Happy New Year to everybody. And really good to hear from the school board's struggles. And congratulations to Dr. Tiffany Cox and the band concert that they put out and her getting her education doctorate. On a sad note, Mary Jane McKinnon has passed, and our sympathies to their family. Thank PBSO for their traffic calming responses and for their activity on North Federal. Great to see Little Free Libraries publicized and congratulated. Mary Lindsay works at that and demonstrates how giving Lake Worth Beach people are. Public Works, I want to thank for addressing Federal Highway bulk pickup today because it's not bulk pickup day, but they responded and rightfully, they did the right thing by picking it up, even though it's not bulk pickup day. We should either be coding, that should be an automatic code fine if it's on the wrong, absolutely the wrong day, or bulk, the Public Works should come out and pick it up and send them the cost for bulk pickup. Again, knuckleheads in the community, there's too much bulk around. But we are still practicing compassionate code activity. I want to welcome Carla to the commission. I want to thank Valerie Hurley and being reappointed, and all the board members that volunteer their time. I look forward to Lake Worth doing shots for everybody. And that's the vaccine shot, that is.
I missed a part.
And I look forward to this year with the schedule that we have with the workshops for race relations, of addressing the turf decisions, of addressing the Airbnb short-term rental issues, having a charter review committee, and addressing hopefully any excess budget, short budget excess that our bond money might be left with. The public-private partnership it was my understanding that we would have a workshop to continue efforts to improve our oceanfront park. We have parking study that we haven't really gotten much progress on. I would like to see the CRA do quarterly reports on their activities, knowing that they are doing a good job. And I appreciate what the CRA is doing. A lot of other communities have electeds on their CRA, and I'm thinking that it might be more important for electeds to be part of the CRA board. I would like to see a living wage as part of our budget. And in fact, even as part of our contracting requirements as a minimum wage of $15 an hour to everyone that works or gets our money. I would like to see an electric car policy that any time that we get a chance to buy a car, it would be an electric vehicle. Let's see, maybe we might have an education board in the near future. So we've got a lot of work to do, and I'm looking forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to wish everyone a happy new year, 2021. Thank goodness. I want to welcome Commissioner Blackson. Yay, another woman up here with me. Sorry, boys. You know, it's been a boys club up here too long. Thank you very much. Sorry, I'm very happy. We had some great things. I'm trying to think of where we left off before the holidays. The house decorating contest, we all went around and they picked some wonderful houses. I thought that was terrific in the different categories. We had a great time. It's been so much going on. I really don't even know where to. Polar Express at the Bryant Park, and if I'm missing anything, it's just because it's vacation brain. I do want to mention a couple of things in reference to what Commissioner Robinson said. Yeah, all those things are queued up for the new year. One thing I want to keep in mind too is I think that we really need a review of the penny sales tax. We need, to bring that back as an agenda item, since all of these things have gone on and we really haven't had any detailed conversations about that since before the pandemic. And putting out there for you or to think about is exactly relating to what Erica was talking about our kids, is better investment in the south end of the city, in District 1 in Wembley Gym, in reference to for the children, enhancing. There's been a lot of projects that have been talked about, and even money's been raised to use towards those projects. And we've never really had a conversation about them. I just know because I've talked with staff members or whatever, but we really have to start looking in, we've got for the real young ones. And what about the middle school kids? We've got programs that are going on, and I will tell you our leisure services, nobody's better than them, and our teams are winning awards, but there are some after school programs that could be had with our middle school kids. That's a missing, I always fight for VPK. And for our middle school kids, that's a missing gap. And now with COVID and the lack of their ability to learn in public, these programs are going to be really important for them in their neighborhoods. And I think we should look at enhancing the facilities there and maybe putting together some of these plans that have been talked about all these years for people in the community, and maybe actually get something working there that we can get a handle on and offer up, because the kids are our future. And it's not going to get any easier for them this next year or two. So, I'd like to see if we can talk about, I know there's been city plans in the past. I know for the children has had some plans. I know that that the pastors in the community have had some ideas of recreational types of amenities that they'd be interested in there. Let's put all of our brains together. It's your district, Scott, that I'm talking about. So, I think, I'd love it if you could kind of start putting your feelers out for some of those plans, new and old. And maybe we can bring something back that could be really beneficial to the kids in this community, because they're going to need any help they can get. All right. Thanks, guys. Moving on to public participation of non-agenda items and consent agenda items.
Madam Mayor, I have 4 comments about non-agenda items, but since you moved the one item D under consent to new business, I have several comments about that, and I'll read them at the appropriate time.
So they're not here for this part.
Right, there's only 4 under this part.
Okay.
The first is from Adela Shiner, 500 First Avenue South. She writes, on December 15th, the commission voted to fill the vacant seat in District 2 for the unexpired term of Omari Hardy, ending March 9th, 2020. Agreement as to who would fill the seat seems to have been predetermined out of the public eye since only one candidate was considered, and the motion to approve her took no more than about 5 minutes. No public comment was invited. There was no ability for other candidates to apply for vacant seat, even though the new appointee is running for election in March against 2 other qualified candidates. Hence, the newly appointed commission will head into the March elections with an unearned advantage. The commission has been working with only 3 commissioners since Omari Hardy stepped down. I would like to know why this appointment was delayed until after those standing for election in March had filed. Sincerely, Adela Shiner. The next one is from Matthew Portilla. Good evening, commissioners and staff. The closure of 12th Avenue South at 95 last year really opened my eyes to the amount of through traffic our areas endure. I want to share my support for drastic traffic calming on 12th Avenue South, with additional calming at the intersection of 12th Avenue South and Lake Osborne Drive. I implore you to come and see the volume of traffic on any given rush hour. Matt Portilla, 1301 Cochrane. This one is from Margot Emery. And she says, on Sunday, January 17th at 4 p.m., St. Andrew's Episcopal Church joins with the Lake Worth Interfaith Network and the City of Lake Worth Martin Luther King Jr. Committee to present a Zoom entertainment, a celebration of Clementine Hunter and Aaron Douglas, 2 renowned African-American visual artists. The show is produced and performed by the Lake Worth Beach-based Core Ensemble, cello, piano, percussion, and actors. The program features scenes from the lives of the 2 artists. Hunter was known as the Black Grandma Moses. Douglas is remembered as the father of Black art. The show includes visual images of artworks and dynamic music from the Jazz Age, a soulful tune from the Deep South, and works by African-American composers. The collaboration has been a highlight of the MLK holiday for the past 15 years, addressing Dr. King's notion of a beloved community and a world of interconnectedness. To access the Zoom link for this event, please visit standrewslwb.com or call 561-582-6609. And I have that information. If anyone needs it, they can contact me and I'll get it to them. The last comment is from Terry Silverman at 1829 North A Street. Happy New Year. This is a public comment about the value of leaving a public comment. It would seem that there is a perception problem about the value of the public's opinion during a city meeting. After watching numerous replays of commission meetings, it is visually apparent that our elected officials have predetermined how they're going to move and vote on items, and no amount of public comment will change their mind. Sometimes I notice that the clerk or city manager is asked, is there any public comments after a vote has already transpired, as if it was an afterthought. Please don't treat this process as a sham. Many are disillusioned to the point where they don't even want to leave comments anymore. Many of you don't return phone calls or emails. So this is all we have left to make our viewpoints known. Thank you. Those are all the comments that I have tonight for this section. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you so much. Moving on to the approval of the minutes, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Moved by the Vice Mayor. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Bloxson. All those in favor state so by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to the consent agenda. Do remember that item D has been removed to new business item B. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
Motion made by the Vice Mayor Pro Tem Maxwell, seconded by Commissioner Robinson. All those in favor?
We're going to discuss this, or is that what
It's been moved to new business.
and yes,
Another item.
yeah,
We're on the consent agenda.
okay.
All those in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. We're moving on to new business now. This is item A, authorization to execute a quitclaim deed to Constru American LLC for property located at 503 North K Street.
So moved.
Second?
I'll second it. But I want to comment on the understanding that the city isn't in the real estate business. We just aren't, and probably shouldn't be, although sometimes we wish we were, in terms of property that becomes available or this property now was listed at 357. Fantastic that we're going to get a tax increase on property that was a problem property. I just want the public to know that we did the right thing by putting it on the market rather than getting government involved in real estate. That's my comment for a second, if you know.
Sure, Vice Mayor.
Christy, our attorney is online. Christy, can you weigh in a little bit? Because we really didn't, it's got some complicated pieces here. We didn't really put it on the market.
Yes.
We, this was our way of trying to fix a code problem, and it happened to be a quick claim. And I can tell you, for the last 10 years I've been here, I don't remember us ever doing a quick claim. This was recommended by our people that were trying to, get the taxpayers' dollars back, correct?
Yes, Madam Mayor, if I may respond.
Please, thank you.
Yes. This property, just so everybody knows, the city doesn't currently own this property. We have a quitclaim deed in the chain of title, which creates a cloud on the current owner's title. What happened was this property was in and out of foreclosure. The city actually tried to foreclose it at one point back in 2005. Then it had a mortgage foreclosure that was pending. Essentially, all that went away in around 2012, and the property appeared to be getting cleaned up. But then it went back into a state of disrepair. Eventually, there was a fire and it became vacant. The city had a collection agency back in late 2017 that approached the property owner about perhaps initiating another city foreclosure. The property owner agreed to quitclaim deed the property to the city. This was really done without legal's involvement with the collection agency, and they obtained a quitclaim deed from the property owner without researching the taxes on the property. At that time, the property owed about $16,000 in past due taxes. So shortly after the city acquired the quitclaim deed, the property was set for a tax deed sale, and it sold in 2018. Now, the city could have attempted to redeem the property and pay off all the taxes, but administratively, we looked at the analysis, and with almost $17,000 in past due taxes owed at that time, and the value of the property, and as Commissioner Robinson recommended and mentioned, the city really shouldn't sometimes be in the real estate business. We decided to allow the property to go forward on a tax deed sale, and ownership was acquired through that process. At that point, the city's ownership was really extinguished. However, usually with a tax deed, in order to clear your title, you have to do a quiet title action. This property owner has reached out to the city and said, would the city be willing to voluntarily quitclaim its interest back to the new owner so they don't have to go through a quiet title action? And that's really all we're seeking to have approved tonight, because the property owner could file a quiet title action. The city would not have any defense. It would just be really administrative in nature. And eventually they would get clear title. So this is a way to allow the current property owner to obtain a clear title. They do have a buyer who wants to buy the property and do something with it. And so this is our opportunity to see that, occur.
Thanks.
Vice Mayor?
So Christy, for clarity, you know, we are hopeful that, you know, there will be a buyer that will put this back on the tax rolls and do something great with the property, because the property's been derelict for years. And the recourse, if the new owner did not and didn't do anything and sit on it for years, we would then again start code violations and it would start all over, correct?
Absolutely. Now, this is it's a small vacant lot. It's one of those 20-foot, 5-foot wide lots. And the new owner, the owner who has a contract to purchase it actually was the one who reached out to the city. So we are hopeful that that new potential owner will do something with the property.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we've got a motion on the floor and a second. Are there any public comment cards, Madam City Clerk?
No, Madam Mayor, not for this item.
Seeing there are none, all those in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. All right, we're going to move on to item new business B. That is the consent agenda item, resolution number 01-2021, budget amendment to the 5-year CIP plan. Received some.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second.
So I've received a number of people calling and emailing about the items that were on here, so I just thought it would be good to pull it and have a discussion on it. Commissioner Robinson?
Thank you for pulling it. I'm certainly interested in how it got under the topic of budget amendment. Two things going on here. The Howard Park improvements, which you mentioned, Madam Mayor, and the 17 South M Street, which is a different kettle of fish. The CDBG money for Howard Park is, we're spending $80,000 to resurface basketball court, which I've seen and watched being used, and I have to wonder if this is good money at this time. Certainly, maintenance is important, but you mentioned getting more kids involved in activities. I have a question whether CDBG money can be used for programs. Is that?
Yes.
There, Madam Mayor, there's certain restrictions specifically. Are you asking a question about the Howard Park activities?
Well, that was what I was mentioning earlier was using penny sales tax money. This was nothing about the CDBG monies.
Well, I'm questioning the CDBG money.
Yeah,
Can it be used for programs?
Oh.
There's certain restrictions.
Yeah.
You have to be more specific. For example, we at one time during the rules that were in place actually used 1 year money for code enforcement activities.
Yes.
But generally the city, and it's been our experience that we use it for capital items and improvements. And that's included the greenways, the parks.
The question is, would we be better use of today's money in the budget issues that we're going to have this year, used differently than $80,000 for resurfacing a basketball court? I'm just, and at the end of the day, we're going to be spending, what, $325,000 in Howard Park, which is a well-used park, and it needs all the money we can give it. I just want to make sure that we're spending it wisely in terms of $80,000 for a resurface of basketball court. The second item is the South M Street. Are we going to address this all in one approval or whatever?
It's all addressed in
One vote?
it's addressed in one vote, but if you want to address it to speak on the issues.
Well, I'll speak then separately because I don't know how it's going to go in terms of one vote for everything. Because this was almost, I don't want to say why it wasn't a separate issue. is questionable in my mind. And when you mentioned restrictions on Bryant Park, are there any restrictions on the use of Bryant Park for commercial use? And where in Bryant Park, you know, we're going to be voting on allowing this building to be at a cost of, and I don't know if we have any contract costs or these estimates, and usually estimates are much lower than what the real cost is. We don't know where it's going to go in Bryant Park in terms of my interest in community educate or information. Bryant Park neighborhood wasn't aware of it being moved to Bryant Park. I don't know that I guess it's up for a vote tonight. I would like to certainly table this part of the vote for further consideration on where it's going to go, more specifics on who's going to use it. And again, are we in the real estate business or not? The CRA owns the property and is negotiating with developers. And are we, have we exhausted all possibilities of that expense being put on our budget? So I'm disappointed in how this got into the second phase of something that was headlined as a budget amendment.
City Manager?
Madam Mayor, and thank you for your questions, Commissioner Robinson, and concerns as well, Mayor. Just to be very clear, this is a resolution amending your capital improvement plan for 5 years. And that plan sets out how we plan to spend money for various activities related to capital investments. As far as the CDBG, that's been a process that's been underway, and y'all have already approved Howard Park as a worthy, necessary investment of those funds that are allocated as our partnership with the county through the federal program. 17 South M Street, recognizing it in the capital plan for the budget. I agree it should have been done back when we did the budget process, but it wasn't. And what we're trying to do is to recognize that we have soft costs and work that need to be done, because when this property was purchased and discussed with the commission individually and collectively in your actions to use sales tax money to buy this incredible historic property, it was for the purpose of originally creating parking space there. And we were going to take that structure and put it in a place worthy of its history and its function. Right now, and it has been used by the leisure services staff. That's where Lauren and her team reside and are using it. And in other cities, there's usually a location in the Premier Park facility, this place, Bryant Park. Decisions on the ability and how we go about the cost of moving, getting it to a location, picking a location, and designing and doing the engineer work that has to be done on any capital project hasn't been recognized yet. And we're trying to get that lined up in this, because at the end of the day, the commission has made the decision to use this land with sales tax money for the intent of parking. Now, you always have the ability to undo those things, but the appropriate and proper, according to our finance director, which is the correct way to do this, it needs to be put in the capital improvement plan so people see the costs and the cost by year. We don't have any soft cost expenditures on design or estimates for moving it and relocating it to another location. In this case, you mentioned Bryant Park. And that's something we think we need to do, because there is a point in time where we have to report back to the county and answer for the sales tax expenditures. We have had conversations individually and collectively about putting it in Bryant Park and having the leisure services staff occupy it as the department in our premier park facility. And this is just recognizing it by resolution to put it in the actual CIP. Contracts for the engineers and architects, none of that's happened. This is just recognizing it in the CIP plan, the 5-year plan. So I hope that kind of gives you a little better understanding that this isn't a fait accompli that's already on its way. It's the next step in the process to facilitate those activities and those discussions. But I need to also be able to bring back, based on the direction I understand from the commission, the detail with the engineering and architectural work to say, here's the cost, here's your options, and this is how you do it. And then you go and expend the funds and identify, how we're going to do that from there.
Commissioner Block?
Do we know if Bryant Park has any restrictions on commercial use?
I'm sure there are restrictions at Bryant Park, but I'm not sure the question about commercial use and how it relates to the building.
Well, you have snack bar and marina dockmaster and concessions.
Those are options.
Those are options.
Well, but if they're not allowed by right,
Well, part of the soft cost is to research all those details to the level of giving you definitive answers.
have we explored the possibility of an empty lot anywhere else for less than the money that we're looking at spending and putting it back on the tax roll? I think this needs a little more study in terms of jumping off on one building that we haven't addressed the rest of the L&M project area.
Well, just to clarify, if I could, Madam Mayor,
Please.
this discussion about this purchase on this property with this structure can be related to what he was talking about with L&M, but it is independently a separate set of activities that are going to require some decisions that have nothing to do with the L&M project.
Parking.
But they're parallel in a lot of ways. I don't want to be disingenuous about that, but at the end of the day, it was purchased for parking, and we had conversations and understanding the direction that.
But the CRA owns it. The CRA owns it.
The city bought this property.
Oh,
But the CRA has control of it.
No,
Not yet.
well.
Or, at
I'm kinda
what
going off the
point?
topic here, but I can answer the question
Well,
if you want. Madam Mayor.
would please.
At the end of the day is if the L&M project is completed through the CRA process, the city would have to be remunerated for any sales tax money for any parking that isn't supplied. However, if that turns out that there's parking created that would equal to what we purchased for the property and the development, that's a transaction that will happen at some point here in the future. No development is in process at this point that has been submitted to the city staff. So it's something that the city, you own. You purchased it with sales tax money.
Yes.
Mhm.
And I think in terms of the L&M seat to the CRA, it was the right thing to do. Now we're talking about additional expenses. I'm not sure that there is a rush to make a decision on relocating it to Bryant Park is my concern.
Just to allay your fears, Commissioner Robinson, there's many more steps that would be required. We are just following the appropriate budget process by putting it in with a resolution in the CIP program to identify it. And we would still have to do and intend to do the engineering and architectural work, permitting all the way through to give you the next step, which would be, okay, here's what it's going to cost. This is what it's going to involve. And are you ready to go forward with the contracts, which we would have to bring back to you because they're over, obviously. The amounts.
And you're asking us to authorize at least $20,000 tonight.
The soft costs.
So that's $20,000 is hard money as far as I'm concerned. So you're asking us to authorize $20,000 just for starters.
Whatever the soft costs were associated with this particular project.
And that
to get us those detailed numbers.
I am sorry to think that that this should not be in haste on a decision like this for Bryant Park. I just finished ethics training. The decision-making process of individuals is public. Public has a right to know what the decision process is, from what I understood the ethics training to be. And when you're saying that you've talked to individual commissioners, I think the public doesn't know enough about the decision process when it's individual one-on-one conversations. And we have up to now, in terms of buying the property, we haven't had a discussion on what to do with it next. And we had talked about communication with, we are now acting as a developer, and we haven't communicated to anybody about what we're going to do. I object to having this as a vote tonight, and I don't want to restrict any activity to improve Howard Park, but if we could separate this vote, or I just am, I think that the whole thing needs a little more input from us and the community.
The assistant city manager has been waving, so he's been trying to speak up. Juan, are you there?
Well, I hope I didn't take up too much of your time.
No, yes, Madam Mayor, but I can wait. I just wanted to clarify some comment on the Howard Park piece, but I can wait till the end if you guys are still discussing the 17M item.
Okay, sorry, I didn't know what I thought you were trying to answer Commissioner Robinson's questions. That's why I called on you.
On Howard Park, I can.
Okay.
William's online to speak to 17M specifically if there's any questions that Commissioner Robinson may have.
Okay, so about Howard Park, you want to answer that for him?
Yes, I just wanted to clarify that 80,000 is not being spent on a basketball court. The backup is actually the original budget kind of project description that we're required to submit to the county when we put in a proposal. Since that time, there's been a lot of revisions, and the actual project includes numerous components to it that include redoing the pavilion, the bathrooms, a walking trail. Multiple basketball courts are being resurfaced. Initially, we thought we were going to have to rebuild them, which is why the initial project cost was so high. But we have since found out that they just simply need to be resurfaced and repainted, which is a quarter of the cost. We're also redoing the futsal court, picnic tables, barbecue grills, and also updating the playground. And obviously, just like we did with Royal Poinciana, there will be public engagement opportunities for the public and the kids to get involved in picking the colors and the stuff with the playground. So I don't want there to be any misunderstanding based on the backup, which is an original document, but since then has been revised. And we feel really confident that the community down in the Wingfield area will be really pleased with the final product.
And that's listed in the backup material.
Well, in the backup, I'm looking at $80,000 for resurface court, Howard basketball court. And then additional improvements to playground and pavilion and, so I guess I'm wrong in assuming that the basketball court isn't going to cost us $80,000.
That's correct. There's actually two courts there, and it also includes a futsal court, and it's not 80,000. Again, those are placeholder numbers.
That's okay.
Yeah. So the total project is 266,000.
Isn't really what is going to happen.
Well, the project elements are going to happen. The costs associated with have since come in lower. So the project, evolved since we submit original documentation to the county, which that's a copy of, which gets adopted into our 5-year plan, which is why the item is before you. So in order for the CDBG project to be in compliance, it has to be part of our 5-year plan. And the timing of the issuance and the timing of our budget, this was one item that was rolled over, and now we're coming back to amend it. So in a perfect world, it would have been done with the adoption of the original 5-year CIP back in October.
And the Northwest ball fields are not in the CDBG area.
The Northwest ball fields haven't been a part of any CDBG conversations for
No,
years.
but they're not even in the.
No.
I don't think so. I think they're just out of the northern boundary.
Was my question. Good.
Thank you. Ms. Loxton, excuse me, Commissioner Loxton.
I happened to be one of the stakeholders that met with city officials when they were deciding what the new allocation for the CDBG money would be for this fiscal year. And when we submitted this package to the county last year, we still had questions to say there are certain areas that are more important than resurfacing the basketball court, such as putting in a new quality bathroom for the people there, putting in lighting for the gentlemen. I'm down there a lot, and every night there are guys playing basketball and they can hardly see because we need to update the lighting in that area. And so when we knew that this package was going to go to the county, we also knew that the city had an understanding that we had other things that we felt were more important than resurfacing the basketball court. But time was of the essence for the city to get it submitted to the county so that the county could give us approval. So we know that we had a work in progress, and the city gave us assurances that they were listening to what we said and that they understood that this was not how the money was going to be spent. Since it was put in here, I think that this was the old package with the old ideas, but the people who live down there are counting on the city to do much more, and the city has assured us that they will do much more.
Yes, and if I may add to that, Commissioner Blockson and Madam Mayor, if I may, we will provide a cleanup just to make this whole, a cleanup sheet by the end of business week to you guys. So you guys have the exact breakdown. And to Commissioner Blockson's point, there are a lot of improvements that are going to happen as part of that overall project. So we'll make sure to get the accurate, up-to-date version of what's happening at Howard Park in your hands.
Vice Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, and on this issue, I thought that we had already discussed this, and we all understood this. The five of us understood that these more refined applications of the funds were in play. These were just placeholders for the funding. What I'm saying, Commissioner, is we've already discussed this as a body, but that's okay. I hope you're clear on it
One at
now.
a time.
And the other thing that I wanted to say, and I want to try to speak to the city manager's comments about a piece of property at 17 South M. This is, in my estimation, one of the elementary steps in the process of deciding on what, if anything, is going to be done with that property. And again, providing a placeholder for funds so the discussion in the public could take place and we can move the project or not move the project. So this is simply, nothing's been decided here other than the city needs to explore what we're going to do. And this is the first step of doing that. And then the public will have their opportunity to come in and weigh in. And, we'll learn if there's any deed restrictions in Bryant Park. We'll learn if that's not a good place for it. All these things will be vetted out. This agenda item has nothing to do with a final decision on what's going to happen with that building. It's the first step in a conversation with the community on how to handle that property and what to do with it.
Same thing like a placeholder, like you just said. In order to make sure that you ensure the CDBG funds in, you've got to put $1 in place. And then you've got to bring, then you bring back the idea, just like initially last time when we discussed the L&M properties or whatever. That was talking about having a meeting on it, but no project's actually been brought to the city that can be even vetted and spoken about. So it's just the way the process works. It's not actually the project itself, because the project itself, wherever and whatever we're talking about here, the parking area or the other properties or whatever, they're all going to come back before us a million times to vet with the public so that we can talk about it, vote it up, vote it down, whatever. But it's just for budgeting purposes. Commissioner Robinson.
Well, it concerns me that you, in your opening remarks, you talked about reconsidering the penny sales tax. I am concerned about decisions and then going back on a decision and then making a decision on Bryant Park for 17 South M, and then saying that, well, it's not really a decision, it's just a decision to possibly change. I don't like making decisions that are vague or with the possibility of changing in the future, because, and based on numbers that may change or haven't even been presented. I am concerned about this process of this item. And it sends a bad, we've had consequences for no decisions. Now I'm concerned about consequences for decisions that we know we're going to talk about changing. It doesn't feel right to me.
Well, if that's the case, then we can never prepare a budget. We can never budget ahead of time for anything that we're ever going to do because we haven't done it yet. And we should be able to vet every project that comes. I mean, it just doesn't make any, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I'm at a loss.
This item is no different than any other item that we have in the CIP program. This is part of a process. Okay, this particular project or this idea. Okay, nothing's been decided, but it has. We have a fiduciary responsibility to go through a process, and this is one of the very first steps. So, like, if you take out your 5-year CIP book, you can find all these projects that are in the CIP. Okay, none of them have been finalized yet. None of them have been necessarily vetted by the public, but they have to have a starting place, and this is a starting place. So I think you're a little confused. I think you think that this is a done deal and somehow the approval of this resolution is going to make something magical happen between that building and Bryant Park. And that's not the case at all. This is simply an opportunity for staff to expend money to do the research and bring back their findings to the commission and have a public conversation.
That's exactly what it does. I'm not confused. We're spending $20,000 to talk about going down that street when there's 5 other streets that we could take a look at.
Let's give them our travel budget again for this year.
Yeah.
We're in a new year. Give them our travel budget again. We're not going anywhere. I'm sorry. All right. Do we have any public comments on this item?
Madam Mayor, we do.
Okay, let's go to that.
The first is from David Savage at 432 South J Street. Greetings. As a concerned citizen of Lake Worth and a resident of downtown Jewel neighborhood, I strongly object to consent agenda item Resolution 01-2021 Amendment 2, 17 South M Street, relocation and renovation of the contributing historic structures, relocation to Bryant Park. This project surely deserves public discussion. Relocating this structure out of our neighborhood is just another slap in the face from the CRA/city and surely adds to the feeling of futility of improving this area. Further, to bury it on the consent agenda is an insult and a disservice to the residents in this neighborhood. I request that it be pulled, not just for discussion tonight, but for a notice public discussion. Respectfully, David Savage. The second item is from, second comment is from Betty Resch. Dear Mayor and Commissioners, once again, you've taken the opportunity to take action on an item which will greatly impact our downtown and my neighborhood without the benefit of any meaningful input from citizens. The action to move the property at 17 South M Street is buried in the consent agenda with the title Budget Amendment to the 5-year CIP plan. From that description, there would be no way of knowing that the commission is very quietly going forward with the move of 17 South M Street. This, even in the face of knowing full well that 1, there is a pending appeal in the courts regarding the project which would make this move necessary, and 2, even in the event that the appeal is not successful, there currently is no plan which has been approved. There is no rush to make this move. Sadly, instead of taking a moment to listen to your constituents, once again, you're taking action as far away from the sunshine and transparency as is possible. Your disinterest in the opinion of the citizens has once again been shown. This does not belong on consent agenda. I suggest that this item be removed and dealt with in a more responsive way. Thank you for your time, Betty Resch. And this next item is from Cliff Kohlmeyer. Dear City, 17 South M Street is a landmark property within the neighborhood Jewel Historic District that I live in. The removal will have a significant adverse effect on the historic character of my neighborhood and of the downtown. Public participation in a decision of this kind is vital to the success of the L&M Street projects. But regrettably, the public has been shut out at every stage of the planning process for this project. A 2-minute public comment does not allow adequate opportunity for input. It is outrageous that this agenda item was not placed visibly on the agenda, but buried deep within the agenda packet to avoid proper notice. The agenda item should be moved to a more appropriate time and place after public notice. The next is from Ann Fairfax. I'm writing to object the approval of a 7-story apartment block that is going to be presented today. The following are my comments. This building is larger than anything that's allowable in our zoning code. I don't object to tall buildings per se, but this is too large and too tall for the neighborhood. The context for the building is wrong. 3, there's been a lack of transparency with the citizens of Lake Worth. I have not been notified properly with the project. My address is 226 South L Street. This property does not conform to the historic district guidelines set forth by Lake Worth Historic Resources Board. 5, approval of this project would put the historic district designation in jeopardy as it flaunts the guidelines set by the Secretary of Interior Standards for Historic Preservation. And 6, the City Council of Lake Worth Beach and the CRA are derelict in their duties, which they are elected and appointed to do, which is to protect the historic neighborhood characteristic. I urge you to reject this development scheme as it's out of scale and the wrong design for the place. Sincerely, Ann Fairfax. The next item is, the next comment is from Tammy Panza. I object to the city burying a newsworthy item on the consent agenda. Many people have objected to the demolition of the cottage is purchased by our tax dollars, and the movement of the contributing structure on M Street to Bryant Park has been buried in a consent agenda item. This screams a lack of transparency. This item is from page 40 or so of the backup on the consent agenda item that goes undiscussed by the commission. We have been allowed limited public participation and the city hall still is closed. I object to the city practicing closed door policies and government activity. This item has been newsworthy and should not be buried in a consent agenda backup packet. No one, and she goes on to say that no one has even discussed where in Bryant Park this building is going to go. It is not zoned for buildings, and you're going to make a building go there, which means it's going to need parking, obstruct views, change zoning, make it saleable or discardable, et cetera, et cetera. This next item is from Christopher McVoy. To the Honorable Mayor and Commissioners, Christopher McVoy, 1514 15th Avenue North. Regarding consent item D, I request this item be pulled from the consent agenda for a public discussion by the commission. The public deserves a very clear explanation of the purpose of this item. My understanding is it's to fund relocation of a building at 17 South M Street to Bryant Park as part of an effort to place 100+ 4- or 5-story building downtown. I have to say that I was astonished that this commission would be so untransparent, so opposed to openness and transparency, that they would try to hide this item without public discussion on page 40 of a consent agenda. Shame. And Keith, there are 2 people who have asked to speak on this item. The first one would be Catherine Kohlmeyer. I don't know whether she still wants to read it, to speak.
Yeah. Catherine Kohlmeyer is able to talk now.
Okay.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
I would like a response from the clerk that you can hear me.
Yes, ma'am, I can hear you.
Thank you. I also am opposed to spending money on researching moving 17 South M Street, because moving a unique historic contributing structure from the downtown to a different location means that the downtown Lake Worth no longer has that historic structure. So it doesn't really matter where you move it to, it still changes the character of the historic downtown of Lake Worth. The character of the downtown is one of the vital pieces of charm of the city, and The CRA in its messaging that says how it wants to preserve that charm and the unique historic nature of the city. And this is moving this building would be in preparation for an apartment block, which does not conform to the historic nature of the city. So I think the whole thing is very questionable and very disappointing. Thank you.
Thank you. Keith, the last comment is from Thomas Conboy, if you can
Yes.
bring him in.
And Thomas should be able to talk now if you want to unmute yourself.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
We can.
Dear Mayor and Commissioners, at the December 1st meeting, I requested the following of you. To be clear, I am asking for the CRA and the City of Lake Worth Beach to engage the services of a professional, neutral, AICP certified urban planner with experience in public meetings and charrettes to conduct a public meeting charrette that would allow Lake Worth Beach residents to share ideas and goals for the downtown, in particular for the properties that have been aggregated between L and M streets. I further ask that the provision be made for capturing the ideas and goals gathered at that workshop, and that these provisions be made, that these and any other information received there be compiled by the engaged planner into a public report to be submitted to the CRA and the city. After making that statement, you all spoke at length at how many public meetings there are and how no one ever shows up to the charrettes. Then you went on to bully Commissioner Robinson heavily, right? And over 150 people showed up at the commission meeting to support our appeal of repealing the HRPP decision to move forward the demolition and moving of historic structures on the CRA properties between L and M streets. Okay, so the idea that L and M is a very sensitive topic in this city should be very, very clear to you. And so sticking this budget item for 17 South M Street in the buried on page 40 of your 80-page commission agenda and don't reference it in the main body of the agenda is absolutely, absolutely insane, okay? Mr. Bornstein, you said the word disingenuous. This is extremely disingenuous. You talked about the sales tax money being used for parking for this space. We're gonna lose 67 parking spaces if this project that you guys have accepted is moved forward. And you keep saying that we have plenty of space to talk in the public. You lump this into park things that are in the south part of the city, and you've admitted that it's old packaging with old ideas. Well, why should the city commission not be voting on accurate ideas that are the latest information? If they're voting.
Excuse me, Mr. Conboy, there, your time is up. We have a time limit on speaking here at 2 minutes.
Thank you very much. Are there any more, Madam City Clerk?
No, Madam Mayor.
Okay. Commissioner Bob.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I can't see it. Clear on, I can't see.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to provide a little bit of additional clarification so that we're all on the same page here of understanding the process. This property was purchased with sales tax money with the understanding that it was going to be guaranteed for parking.
Correct.
So irrespective of any other activity in that block or anywhere else, you're going to be confronted with decisions regarding either turning that property into parking and moving the structure, which is why we're, really needing to get to those soft cost expenditures to start to detail down what is it that we want to do with this building. Moving it to Bryant Park has been something we have talked about publicly, individually. It was talked about when we did do the sales tax purchase. And that was the understanding from the county when we told them that that was where that money was going to be spent. We need to follow through with some kind of direction to staff on moving forward. And this recognition, the CIP does that. This is not about anything to do with the development proposal that has not been submitted to the city yet. We don't even have a development proposal for L&M.
What was Ms. Fairfax referring to, 7 feet or something? What was that all
I
about?
think there's a general tendency to tie all this together, that these decisions are somehow sequential and one has to happen in sequence in some fashion. I'm not sure, but all I know is we have to somehow figure out what you're going to do with that building one way or the other.
Correct.
I need to get the soft costs covered so that we can give you the data that you need to make those decisions on. Even if you decide to move this structure, you're still going to have to go before the city's HRPV twice, I believe. There's going to be adequate conversations, discussions. I would imagine there's going to be presentations. There's going to be neighborhood meetings. There's going to be a lot of things involving not only that building moving, but where it's going to move to and what are the plans long term. And so there's going to be adequate opportunity for people to comment on that. And you're still going to have to also make budget allocation decisions in your budgeting process, whether it's in the budget, the annual budget, or an amendment, to actually expend the funds to affect any activity that you're going to contemplate and pull the trigger on. So there are many things in this process. We're bringing this forward. We put it on consent agenda because we thought as a budget resolution, it was setting the process up that we felt we had enough direction from the commission and then the purchase of the sales tax money for parking, that it was clearly understood from the beginning, you were going to have to move that building one way or the other, and no more. So we're not trying to hide anything. For something that was hidden, it sure is pretty well known.
Well,
so
I understand.
It wasn't hidden. It was just a function of our process to get some data, to get this thing to a decision point that y'all can sink your teeth into in some fashion.
With our input, you know, you create and staff creates the agendas. We don't create the agendas. So, you know, I mean, we put our input on it and you bring things to us. So I just, number one, I just want to put that out there that we're not the ones creating the agendas. I pulled the item because of concern in it and also my own concern about it, because there's a lot of disinformation when it comes to L&M and what we discussed about the parking lot. We could only put the penny sales tax money towards it for use for certain types of things, and parking was one of those items that we had in that discussion. So knowing full well that that had to be, you know, because everyone was screaming, there's not enough parking. I can't find any parking downtown. I'm not parking downtown. People are parking in front of my house, so I can't park in front of my house anymore. So that was to address a parking issue that we had, knowing, like I said, full well about that. But the confusion that I'm having a problem with is everybody putting the cart before the horse in that there are processes that take place that haven't even been decided yet. So someone's talking about a 7-story something or other. Another one's talking about the project. There has been no project submitted. And anything that is submitted for any one of these things is going to come back before us 72,000 times. So I don't want, you know, it's very hard because I can say it, you know, and then it's going to go in one ear out the other, and it's going to be all over social media as you're not suing it and you're moving that and you're allowing this to be moved. No, this is a budgetary item. Anything before it happens has to come before several boards several times. But we knew when we approved, and I think it was unanimous, when we approved the lot for parking, everybody here unanimously approved that. So don't say now you didn't know what you were saying. Well, no, I'm sorry, you didn't do that. You got to pass on that one. But I don't know, Vice Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. Madam Mayor, I think you were just overstating it a little bit with 72,000 meetings.
Well, my mother used to use 9 million. That was her favorite thing. So mine is going to be 72.
But here's something because I sense the frustration in the comments that we heard here tonight.
I know.
And to your point about maybe misinformation or disinformation, the question I have for the city manager is, would it be possible to basically take what you've just shared with us, the steps involved, and commit it to writing?
Right.
And either put it on our website or give us each a copy that we could keep in our pocket. So when we talk to somebody, you know, on the street and they say, well, wait a minute, this is what you're doing. I say, no. This is the process right here, you know, for us to follow. And these are the opportunities that you're going to have if you're concerned that you could participate. But I think it's really important that we start chipping away at some of these misinformation campaigns out there that we've got some kind of super secret stuff going on around here, and that we don't want to have public input. We don't want to have meetings. We want to do this. Look, we're all under a lot of pressure. We're all under a lot of strain with the COVID. It's been a really, really rough year for us. It's been a rough year for everybody, but we still have to conduct business according to the law, according to Florida statute, according to our own ordinances. Okay, so if folks are starting to be a little confused about the processes, maybe we should just, commit those processes to maybe a bullet point presentation or something that we can put out there. So everybody, if they choose to review it, has an opportunity to see what those processes are. It hurts me to hear people say that they didn't have an opportunity to participate. And the classic example I think we've used before is, when we went through the 2 attempts at the bond referendum. And people said, well, you didn't have any meetings. Well, my goodness, we had over 60 meetings, 60 public meetings, yet there were still people in the public that said we didn't have any meetings. So, let's see if we can do a little better job of communicating what these processes are, so we can maybe mitigate some of this confusion and put some folks' fears maybe a little bit more at rest.
The only good thing though is silver lining is that people are getting aware of these things early, so that when we get through the processes of the charrettes and the meetings, that they'll be aware and actually attend them for a change. Because that's the hardest thing. And if it doesn't affect you, it's not in your neighborhood.
That's right.
You don't know about it, and people are out working hard and taking care of their families and feeding their kids, and they don't have time to follow this kind of stuff. And I do want us to be more, please, careful of how we place them. I agree with Commissioner Robinson in that it should have been 2 different items. The two different items for discussion, the CIP projects, just so that they could have been voted on separately. But I'm okay with voting on it now. I think that we do have to be more, we talk about being good communicators, and we probably are using 9 million new ways of, Mom, that was to you, 9 million new ways of communicating since I've got here, between cameras and Zoom meetings and speakers and when I got here, we were just listening to audio, I think, on something. Newsletters. We weren't on social media. We're trying, but we can't put something like that in consent, especially knowing that this is an area of redevelopment that we're looking at, and we know that there are people that are interested in it, and I think we just have to do a better job of communicating that to them and giving them a chance. I think that people at home are just feeling also a little bit uptight about not having the normal processes in place. And I don't like sitting in between plexiglass here too. And quite honestly, I don't even like coming in here with the resurgence of COVID right now. And, not just the second round of it, but now the third that they found in South Africa. So, yeah. So, I'm a germaphobe, but I think we can do a better job. Commissioner Bloxham.
When I read this, when I was at home, and it said relocation and renovation of the contributing historic structures, my first thought was, is this what you're deciding tonight? Or is this the plan? And I'm sure that a lot of people who are listening to us tonight said, you've decided the plan. And so what we should have said was, let's allot $20,000 to develop the soft cost to see how we are going to proceed with this project. If that were a vote, or if that were a thought, we could have a discussion about that. But people are under the misunderstanding that you've all made a decision and you did not consider their feelings. And that lack of transparency to them is what they're angry about. And so we need to not only decide how we want to say it, but what we intend to say. And that's more important than whatever decision we make, because people are trusting us to do the right thing.
Also my mom. It's not what you said, it's how you say it. Commissioner Robinson?
The 20,000 hours is just for this one building. There are other buildings on the property that we have blessed to become a new development downtown. That was unanimous. Two questions. Is there a timeline from the county or any kind of a timeline that we have to vote on this tonight for CDBG money or your CIP program? Is there anything that, any time restriction?
The CDBG, I would say, is very much time sensitive to follow their process and to also, we have to expend it within a certain period of time. So the city, if you'll recall, a few years ago, had almost $1 million in CDBG money.
Yeah.
And we got in a lot of trouble with the county. We don't miss deadlines on that anymore.
Well, what is the deadline then?
I honestly, right now, Commissioner Robinson, I'd have to look it up.
I want to say sorry, Madam Mayor, for interrupting.
Please.
I want to say the project's already in motion, and I think the deadline to expend it is by June. Again, this is a cleanup to have it placed in the actual 5-year CIP. This item's already come forward. The agreements have already come forward from the county. This was a cleanup item that got packaged with the other, 17M, which is more of a newer project or item for discussion. So there is no turning back at this point.
And I hope we don't turn back. That was my concern is that, we're going to be zigging and zagging on money that we've already committed to spend. I'm good with that. But how we spend it is important. And I will say again that the decision process how we come to a decision is public information. And when we make decisions based on a one-on-one conversation, somehow the public doesn't get the information that they should. And unless there's a drop dead deadline of in 2 weeks, I would like to postpone any vote on this one item, or these two items, in fact, because it's been mentioned that what is being talked about and what the neighborhood wanted are two different things. And here we are, talking about moving forward with stuff that was expected to be done and isn't being talked about. Anyhow, I'm not going to say anything else.
I just want to clarify a point. There was no one-on-one conversations regarding bringing this item forward in this manner with any of you. This was a process of the machinery to meet the required way we do business with our finance department, our new finance director. He's really tightening up the ship, putting things in the proper spots so that the documents, the 5-year CIP plans correct and everything is according to the right way to do things. So
his right way to do things is starting to piss people off throughout the neighborhood.
No, putting this item on the agenda, it was a part of a process. My point was there was no one-on-one conversations about how to make a policy decision on this issue. This was put on by staff as a part of a process and in an agenda. And I can guarantee you can go through agenda after agenda throughout the years, and you can find things that somebody, if they're on an opposing side or concerned about something, they're going to go, well, you're trying to hide it. And it's genuinely the machinery of the organization trying to catch up with things. And to Commissioner Bloxham's point, moving into this next phase is a smaller bite of that apple. It's not recognizing it in a 5-year capital improvement program. And I think people have got some agitation about it. So I just wanted to address that. I didn't want that to be the perception that somehow we had talked about putting this item on the agenda, because I haven't talked to any of y'all about putting this item on the agenda.
I don't,
It's on the agenda as part of the staff process to try
correct.
to fill what we believe is staff and commission direction.
Well, we have to do a better job. I mean, in the new year, and if I seem a little sore tonight, it's just that in the new year, we really have to be very cognizant of our communication of certain things. You know what I mean? We have to be clear and concise and, you know, I don't know what else, how many more lines is we're starting to talk about the 9 million or the 72,000 forms of communication that we're using. It's still not getting to the right place. I don't know what we have.
Always do better, but
We can, you know, we have to do better at it. And I don't know how that is or what that is, but I'm wrapping my head around it, trying to figure out, because I don't want people feeling that they're being duped or conned or I mean, the words that are being used are very disheartening to me, because we're probably 10 million or 9 million times more transparent than ever before. And I'm still hearing this, and it's very disheartening to me. You know, and it's always about communication and about this. And I'm like, wow, we're talking about it. We're doing it here. I don't know if it's political. I don't know if it's, you know, what's going on, but I'm going to be, you know, hell bent on trying to make sure that we communicate better, because I don't like this kind of thing happening. And it doesn't make me feel good. And I'm sure it doesn't make any of you feel good when you're spending all the time that you have working on things and you're getting that same kind of feedback from the community. Trust me, I know staff is working their butts off. I know that staff is doing the right thing. I know that Bruce, please don't take that as when I said that about the way he's doing it is busy. The whole budgetary process, we put things in a budget to do a project. It doesn't mean that the project is done just because we put the money there for the yearly project. That project still comes before us. We still have to decide how, and we still decide what's going to happen and how it does. We do that in a budgetary process always. And these things are falling in place just like that. You know, anyway, I look forward to communicating with the public much better in the future and getting you involved in things more. But I just call, you know what, like today I got some emails, you know, I got phone calls or whatever, boom, boom, boom. You know, I can make something happen. When you don't call me or you don't send an email or you don't, and then you complain about it, I can't help you with that. You know, you can blame me for it, even though I never knew about it. But, you know, none of us can help you unless you actually, you know, let us know so we can do something about it. But it's just very frustrating. It's like being wrongly accused. All right, we've got a motion on the floor and a second. All those in favor state so by saying aye.
I
Aye. All those opposed?
I'm sorry, I'm opposed. I'm for the expenditures that we look forward to, just not tonight.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Okay. City Attorney, do you have a report?
So, Madam Mayor, I do not.
City Manager?
Yes, ma'am. Madam Mayor, I also, on behalf of staff, organization would also like to welcome Ms. Blockton to the dais. We've had some good conversations, and set up some orientation discussions with the various departments, and I look forward to that time with her.
I'm sorry, just a housekeeping effort. I just went blank. City Clerk, did I call the count on that?
No.
Motion carries 4-1.
4-1 with
Commissioner Robinson.
Commissioner Robinson opposed. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry.
I wanted to ask staff if they would share the screen on the website real quick. Lauren, if you're listening. I want to start to remind on a regular basis that we have, and this is one of several opportunities for people to interact with the city when they have issues. But this is one of our most effective. It's been one of the most effective for staff follow-up and for getting issues that people have documented, that a message was sent to the city, it was received, and there was a response and some activity took place. If you'll go on our website, are they doing it? Anyway, I was going to put it up there. There's a section, if you click on the top right, and it says make a report. And
There it is. They're showing it. They're showing it.
I don't want anybody to feel that they have to chase down a phone number or there's a magic hidden phone number and a phone booth somewhere. You have access to the city. And on this meeting, I really want to drive home getting the word out that you can go to the website and report something and it'll be addressed by staff and followed up on. There'll be a paper trail. There'll be everything that you're looking for accountability, as well as knowing that your issue was submitted. And it covers the gamut of things that people have concerns about with the city. So
Is it anonymous?
No.
we'll have your email address.
But I mean, is code going to share it with the place that being
Code
complained
is
about?
not sharing those things with people.
Would it not
That's
be a public record?
But it can be a public record if somebody does a public records research. But I've been hearing that there's concerns that somehow you can't get a hold of somebody at the city and before, honestly, there was so many portals and offices, people would bounce around and then they would shop and then they would go. We need to really professionally have really robust portholes where people can make a handshake with the city. And this is one of them that I really want to start to push out there more and more. So as you deal with people and your constituent services, I'm hoping that y'all will start to recommend, filing that paperwork so it happens. And we're also looking at ways of continually pushing it out through our social media, because we do have Twitter, we do have Instagram, we do have a Facebook page, and we have an incredible website. So we need to really familiarize ourselves. I'm hoping to somehow work with staff right now on making it a bottom piece of your email responses from the city, so that everyone who's getting any kind of correspondence back from the city with their emails is going to have that contact there, and they know that, oh, I can use that link and I can go in and say there's a street light out or there's some issue here. Power outages and those kinds of things, we have a very robust process with that. People still want to call and let us know that the power's out. I can guarantee you most of the time, by the time your power's out, they already know the power's out, because we have the meter system that is already the AMI system that's already telling us where the problems are, and trucks are rolling. But it's, some people want to know that they've been heard, and that's important. And it's important that they get a response. This is one of the best ways for people to transact those kinds of activities with your city. And we'll be able to give you some reports on numbers as hopefully we push that out more and more and get people used to using it. Hopefully we'll see that number go up. Actually, I hope the numbers don't go up, because it means they're reporting a problem. So, favorable responses. How's that?
Yay.
You had asked me to address a few things that were under Commissioner comments from Vice Mayor Pro Tem. One of the issues, Vice Mayor Pro Tem, that you had brought up was about the concerns on what we do next with the COVID-19 pandemic and the unknowns.
Did I not ask you the last meeting to come back with a report?
On that. I wasn't ready to do that because honestly, and I'll ask Juan if he wants to respond, because he is also in charge of our emergency management response as the key staff person. But we are up to date and in communications regularly with the county. And the county is the arbiter of how vaccinations get rolled out based on the state rules and what they have set up through the health department. And we would facilitate, and they already know that we are ready as soon as vaccinations become available to the general population. I know that we've been pushing out information through all our many outlets about what they can do now to make appointments. I think Vice Mayor, you mentioned some things at the beginning of the meeting. You're getting the most up-to-date stuff that we're getting and that we're involved in. There's nothing really new or whiz bang out there at this time. So generally what you're hearing in the general media and what you're seeing on our pushes of information, that's what we know at this time. We are and do have a good working relationship with the emergency management team. So as soon as something does happen, we'll let you know. Juan, I don't know if you want to add anything to that. I've been out of sort of the loop here the last couple of weeks, but if you have anything you want to add to that, you're more than welcome at this time.
No, thanks, City Manager, and welcome back. No, you hit it on the head. We are in constant communications with the county, and obviously the health department is the lead agency in the vaccination process. And as early as today, as late as today, we had a good conversation with key staff at the county level about some logistical plans that potentially could bring some vaccination opportunities to those targeted initial first phase groups in the near future to our county in a quicker, in a earlier manner. But right now, those details aren't quite fleshed out. But as soon as we're ready, obviously we'll be canvassing all our senior living, assisted living facilities, our targeted populations that we're looking to get vaccinated first, through all our different media outlets that we have. And like the city manager said, it's a daily, ever evolving process. Just like if you recall back to March and April, before all the testing sites got propped up and we got in sync and we had a process, there's a lot of sit and wait, sit and wait, sit and wait. And unfortunately, the vaccination, because it's a two-part process, it's double the wait time. And then there's not a lot of coordination amongst the counties. Each county's kind of doing their own thing. What I do encourage people to do is to stay in tune with the most up-to-date information, because even as of today, the process to get a vaccination appointment was through their website at the health department. Their website is now being transitioned to a new website. So they even went today asking for emails. So it's fluid and it's changing. So if you're not logged in to our social media platforms, a lot of people who are on our Everbridge get the emergency text. Today we sent out a text as a test on vaccinations that leads you back to a link to the website that has and houses all the up-to-date vaccination update information that we get. Because as soon as I come across an important piece of information, it's immediately pushed out, put on our website. So the information is current and up to date. As far as Commissioner Maxwell's comments, if there's any conversations about these new mutated strands or a mutated strand, there hasn't been anything specific. I'm not a health expert by no means, but the few conversations is it's kind of like the flu where there's multiple strands and whatnot. And just to be clear, and there's enough information out there, the vaccine isn't going to prevent or make COVID go away. It simply helps with the symptoms if you are in a situation where you contract COVID. So we're going to be in a world of COVID for quite some time. And in the general population, which is what most of us fall into the category for the most part, again, that process for vaccination realistically is not going to happen until early summer. What I'm hearing is June, July, and that's when the Walgreens and the CVS's and the private sector start to prop up the ability to vaccinate large quantities of people. So right now the focus has been long-term care facilities, 65 and over, healthcare workers, and so forth. And that's the process right now. What I'm hoping, like I said, is if we're able to bring a smaller vaccination event or opportunity to, as an example, Lake Worth Towers or our senior living facilities that we have in Lake Worth Beach, then we're going to jump at every opportunity to partner with the county or the health department or both to bring that into Lake Worth Beach as soon as possible. And again, as soon as I know, you guys will know. I will keep the city manager informed as we speak daily anyways, and we'll try to update you at every commission meeting and sooner if something becomes available that will be beneficial to the public.
Thank you, Assistant City Manager. Appreciate that.
Madam Mayor, to your direction about bringing back a presentation is something we still want to do as we get some more relevant information. So we weren't trying to jump ahead and you're in the queue of those items that we want to bring back. We don't have a presentation beyond what you just heard, really.
Okay.
And most of that information is obviously on all our portals. Really quickly, under the category of knuckleheads, you want me to address?
Sure. What?
The issue of the tree trimming crew that knocked down a power line, it was not only an expensive inconvenience for the residents, there were costs associated with that. But most importantly, the 26 kV line that was affected that fell down could have killed somebody. Okay, and that is just unacceptable. We are working with the sheriff's office. We are quantifying the impacts, and Williams' office of code will be, I don't know where that is in the process just yet, but going after the property owner for doing unpermitted work, because you do have to have a license in the city to trim trees above a certain size or remove them. And you do have to have permits for your landscaping in certain instances. We do not have a licensing process for arborists, tree trimmers, and landscapers that says you can only do business in the city if you have a license from the city and the proper insurance, which is generally what other cities do, in my experience being a city manager. And, you know, they're required to buy that license, submit the appropriate paperwork, and to have that number on the truck. And the citizens can be held accountable for using an unlicensed, if that's something y'all want to consider and have me bring back at some point. I know that the folks in the electric utility would love to see that. Doesn't mean that you won't have unlicensed workers in the city cutting trees and still causing problems. But we're going to go after this group to the fullest extent of the law, as well as the property owner. And I can bring y'all a report back on that. To the other knuckleheads that are putting out huge piles, eviction pile, whatever they are, has been a problem in this city for a long time because we do have a large number of rentals. And as people move or cycle through, it gets dumped. And then there's just people just putting things out. We've done a much better job, I hope you've noticed over the last couple of years, of cleaning up the main arteries and right of ways by having people move their containers per the code out of the way and make sure that they know the days that they pick things up. When we do pick up a pile out of the time frame, we do attach that to that property and they do get the fee and the fine. So they're paying for that. It's just for the inconvenience. It looks bad. It's something we shouldn't allow in this city. We don't, and we go after it. So when you do see us picking up out of the date, we are finding that person. Okay.
We also need
There's no sympathy for that. That's just unacceptable, especially for people who have investment properties, multi-units, and all those kinds of things. They're making lots of money off the residents of this city that live in those units. And then they're just disrespecting by letting these piles be dumped out in front of these. And it's something we struggle with. There's so many. And that's under public services sanitation.
Well, I just want to mention in reference to public services, there's, you can now go online and click your address in and it'll show you, it's a great new spot on there. So you can, I mean, there's so many new things you can do on the website that you never knew you can do. Now with the GIS systems in place to see where the projects are happening, you could actually pinpoint them on a map and see where every project is. You put your address in, it tells you what, it brings up the new calendar. I was talking with someone, they were like, well, I put myself out and I got a citation for not having it, having it out on the wrong day. And I said, well, what are you doing? And they showed me a flyer that we gave out and it was from 2 years ago. So it had changed, the days have changed since then or whatever. So online, I know we'll get some of you guys tech savvy.
We truly don't want the fine. It's not what we're about, whether it's code or whether it's garbage. We want people just to follow the rules and have a community standard of behavior that we all agree to is good for us as we live in this community together. It's not meant to be anything other than, hey, get your act together and pay attention. It's out of respect for everyone else. And that's how we see it as staff. We don't want your money. We don't want to call, but you do it. You need to be held accountable for it and you do get fined.
Going to make a motion to adjourn?
No, I just wanted to ask the manager, when you mentioned the ticketing and placement on there, it goes on their tax bill, yes?
No, it goes on their electric.
Yeah, it goes on their monthly bill.
Oh, it goes on their electric bill.
It goes right on the electric bill.
Okay, it clarifies that. And the other thing is I'm really concerned when you say eyesore.
I speak with great authority.
Hey, if you're going to take up that much time, I'm entertaining a motion to adjourn.
Yes, let's do that.
Second, anyone?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.